She gave up $3 billion to find real love. He married her, pretended to be poor, and reported every detail of her life to the corporation trying to destroy her family. For 8 years, every kiss was a lie. Every I love you was espionage. And she had no idea. Victoria Ashford was a billionaire heiress who walked away from everything to live as a nobody. She thought she'd found a genuine man who loved her for who she was. But on their 8th anniversary, he handed her divorce papers. For a woman pregnant with his baby. Except Victoria was pregnant too. 4 months. And she'd never told him. What she didn't know? Her husband had been paid nearly $1 million to spy on her. The pregnancy that destroyed her marriage? Completely fake. And the billionaire family coming for her, they had no idea who they were really hunting. Because when a woman with $3 billion and nothing left to lose decides to fight back, the revenge isn't just sweet. It's absolutely devastating. This is the story of the wife he threw away and the empire that rose from the ashes. Stay with me, because what happens next will leave you speechless. And if you love a good revenge story, you're going to want to see how this one ends. Victoria Ashford stood in the kitchen of her modest Charleston home, stirring the pot roast that had been simmering for 3 hours. The aroma of garlic and rosemary filled the small colonial house, mingling with the scent of the apple pie cooling on the counter. Outside, the October sun cast golden light through the trees lining Magnolia Street, painting everything in autumn warmth. She glanced at the clock. 6:15. Brett would be home in 45 minutes. Their 8th anniversary. Her hand moved unconsciously to her stomach, still flat beneath her simple blue dress. 4 months pregnant. Tonight she would tell him. Tonight, everything would be perfect. The table was already set with their wedding china, white plates with gold trim that her friend Grace had given them as a gift. Real china, Grace had insisted, because every marriage needed at least one fancy thing. Candles waited to be lit. Flowers from her garden sat in a mason jar, cheerful and unpretentious. And in the small wrapped box beside her plate, the positive pregnancy test she'd taken 3 weeks ago. Victoria allowed herself a smile. 8 years. 8 years since she'd walked away from everything to find something real. Most people in Charleston knew her as Tori Mitchell, the quiet volunteer at the women's shelter who drove a 7-year-old Honda and clipped coupons from the Sunday paper. They didn't know that before she was Tori Mitchell, she was Victoria Ashford, sole heiress to Ashford Pharmaceuticals. They didn't know about the $3.2 billion sitting in a blind trust or the corporate empire waiting for her return. They didn't know she'd chosen this life deliberately. 8 years ago, standing in her grandmother's Manhattan penthouse, she'd made a decision that everyone thought was insane. "Grandmother, I need to know if anyone can love me for me," she'd said, 24 years old and fresh from Harvard Business School. Margaret Ashford had looked at her with those ice blue eyes. "Love is a weakness, Victoria. It makes you vulnerable. I don't want to end up like you, powerful but alone." The words had hung in the air between them. Her grandmother, brilliant and cold, had built an empire but buried 3 husbands and had no friends. Just business associates and people who wanted something. "Then go," Maggie had said finally. "But when he betrays you, don't come crying to me." Victoria had enrolled at the University of South Carolina under her mother's maiden name, Mitchell. She'd lived in a tiny apartment, worked part-time at a bookstore, and tried to blend in with normal college students. That's where she'd met Brett Carson. He'd been a scholarship student from a small town in Oklahoma, studying business, working 2 jobs to stay in school. He'd seemed genuine, kind, unimpressed by wealth or status, because he assumed everyone around him was as broke as he was. Their first date had been pizza and a walk by the river. She'd paid with crumpled dollar bills she'd saved from her bookstore job. He'd talked about wanting to make something of himself, to give back to his mom who'd raised him alone. He'd seemed real. They'd married at Charleston City Hall in a $200 dress from David's Bridal. Brett's mother, Susan, had flown in from Oklahoma, staying with them because she couldn't afford a hotel. There'd been no honeymoon. Brett said they should save for a house instead. Victoria had thought, this is real. This is what I wanted. For 8 years, she had played the role perfectly. She'd volunteered at the shelter, tended her vegetable garden, and made Brett's coffee every morning. She'd driven her old Honda and felt genuine joy finding clearance sales at Target. She'd built a simple life, a real life, far from the cold corporate world of her childhood. And she'd been happy. Until 6 months ago when something started to change. Brett had been promoted to senior account manager at TechFlow Solutions. Suddenly he was networking with Charleston's elite, wearing designer suits he said were bonuses. He worked late 3 or 4 nights a week. He missed their Friday date nights. His phone was always face down on the table. Last month he'd snapped at her. "Can't you dress better when we go out?" She'd been wearing a sundress from Marshall's, the same kind she'd worn for 8 years. "Did you see Jennifer's engagement ring?" he'd said another time. 3 carats. That's success. She'd looked at her own ring, a simple band they'd bought together for $300. She'd loved it. She still did. But Brett was changing. Victoria pushed the worry away and focused on tonight. Tonight, she would tell him about the baby. Tonight, they would remember why they'd chosen each other. Tonight, everything would be okay. She didn't know that her husband had known exactly who she was for 7.5 years. She didn't know that Richard Hartley, CEO of Hartley Capital, had been trying to acquire Ashford Pharmaceuticals for 6 years. She didn't know that Brett had been paid $847,000 to spy on her, to wait for her to access her trust fund, to find a weakness in the Ashford empire. She didn't know that the promotion, the new clothes, the late nights were all part of a carefully orchestrated plan to destroy her at her most vulnerable moment. She didn't know that upstairs, hidden in the attic, was the encrypted phone she checked once a year to confirm her trust was intact. The phone with Samuel Brennan's number saved under Uncle Sam, the phone that could activate Protocol Omega and bring the full force of the Ashford Empire crashing down on anyone who threatened her. She didn't know that in 45 minutes, her entire world would shatter. Victoria lit the candles, adjusted the flowers one last time, and smoothed her blue dress. The dress Brett had once said made her eyes sparkle. She touched the small, wrapped box containing the pregnancy test. "Hope," she whispered to her still flat stomach. "If you're a girl, your name will be Hope." Outside, a car door slammed. She glanced at the clock. 6:30. He was early. But when Brett Carson walked through the door, he didn't see the candles or the flowers or the carefully prepared meal. He didn't see his wife in the blue dress she'd worn especially for him. He saw an obstacle to the life he'd been promised. And in his hand was a thick, cream-colored envelope from Whitmore and Associates, the most expensive law firm in Charleston. He threw it on the dining table, where it landed directly beside the small, wrapped gift she'd prepared. He didn't notice the gift. He never noticed anything anymore. "Tori, I need you to listen without interrupting," he said. And Victoria's simple life, her real life, the life she'd traded $3 billion to build, began to crumble. Brett paced their small living room like a caged animal, his expensive cologne filling the space. Tom Ford, $300 a bottle. When had he started wearing cologne that cost more than their monthly grocery budget? Victoria's hands shook as she opened the envelope. The letterhead swam before her eyes. Petition for dissolution of marriage. Filed that morning. Their anniversary morning. "This marriage isn't working," Brett said, not looking at her. "It never really worked." She tried to find her voice. "Brett, what are you talking about? We're happy. I thought we were happy." "You thought wrong." He finally looked at her, and his eyes were those of a stranger. "I've met someone who understands me, who understands ambition." The pot roast continued to simmer on the stove. The candles burned, the flowers sat in their mason jar, and Victoria's world tilted on its axis. "Her name is Vanessa Hartley," Brett continued. "Her father owns Hartley Capital. He's making me VP of Business Development. 6-figure salary, stock options, real opportunities, Tori. The kind you could never give me." Each word was a knife. 6-figure salary, real opportunities, could never give me. If he only knew. "Oh, and Vanessa's pregnant," Brett added, almost casually. 3 months, so we need this finalized quickly." Victoria's hand went to her own stomach. 4 months, their baby, their daughter. "Brett, she started. "I know this is sudden," he talked over her, "but it's better this way. Look, you're a good person, you really are. But I need a partner who can match my ambition. Someone with connections. Resources, vision, resources. The word almost made her laugh, almost. We want different things, he continued. I want more from life. I'm being fair about the property division, he said, pulling out more papers. You can keep the house. Well, there's equity, about $45,000. Keep the car. It's old but runs fine. I've already moved my things to Vanessa's place. This should be enough for someone with your simple needs. Simple needs, as if simplicity was a character flaw, as if the life they'd built together meant nothing. Victoria reached for the wrapped box beside her plate, the pregnancy test inside. She needed to tell him, needed to make him understand. Brett, wait, I'm pregnant too. But he was already at the door. My lawyer will be in touch. Sign the papers, Tori. He paused, looking around their home with visible disdain. I hope you find someone who wants simple, someone who's okay with this small life. You were never going to be enough for where I'm headed. His eyes swept over the pot roast, the candles, the carefully set table. Vanessa's world, that's where I belong, with people who matter. He opened the door and cool October air rushed in. Oh, and I need you out of the house by month's end. It's in my name. Think of this as severance pay for 8 years of service. Service. 8 years of marriage. 8 years of love. And he called it service. The door closed behind him. Victoria stood alone in the candlelight, still holding the wrap box. The pot roast congealed on the stove. Her blue dress suddenly felt cheap and wrong. The silence was absolute. She slid down the wall to the floor, clutching the pregnancy test box. This wasn't heartbreak. This was annihilation of everything she'd believed in. Her phone sat on the coffee table. Sam Brennan's number saved under Uncle Sam. One call and this would all change. One call and Brett would discover exactly what he'd thrown away. Her finger hovered over the call button. Not yet, she whispered to the empty room. I can handle this myself. It was a decision she would come to regret. She caught her reflection in the darkened window. A simple woman in a simple dress in a simple house. Is this all I was to him? She asked her reflection. Nothing? A bitter laugh escaped her. If he only knew. Upstairs, hidden in the attic, her encrypted phone sat in a locked box. The phone that could destroy him with a single call. The phone that could activate $3.2 billion in assets. But she didn't go upstairs. Instead, she sat on the floor of the home she'd made, holding the proof of a pregnancy her husband would never know about, and let the candles burn down to nothing. Grace Patterson found her the next morning, still on the living room floor in the blue dress, mascara streaking her face. Tori, oh my God, what happened? Victoria looked up at her best friend, the only person in Charleston who knew about her past life. Not everything, just enough. He left me, Victoria said, her voice hoarse, for someone pregnant with his baby. She held up the positive pregnancy test. And I'm pregnant too. 4 months. Grace went pale. Brett? Brett did this? Victoria nodded and handed her the divorce papers. Grace read them, her face darkening with each page. There's more, Grace said quietly. Tori, I need to show you something. She pulled out her phone and opened Instagram. Vanessa Hartley's profile, 47,000 followers, professional photos, designer clothes, Charleston socialite, and a post from 2 weeks ago. Vanessa in designer maternity wear, Brett's arm around her, both smiling. Caption, our greatest adventure begins. Baby Hartley Carson, arriving February. So blessed. Hashtag baby on the way. Hashtag power couple. 847 comments, mostly congratulatory. Victoria scrolled through them, each one a fresh wound. Finally, Brett's with someone on his level. Vanessa, you're glowing. Much better match for him. Heard his ex was a real nobody. Upgrade. Everyone knew. The entire city knew. Everyone except her. Grace kept scrolling, showing her the timeline. 6 months of photos. Brett at charity galas in tuxedos. Date nights at expensive restaurants. An engagement photo with what looked like Victoria's mother-in-law's ring on Vanessa's finger. The whole time, Victoria whispered. He was building a new life the whole time. The morning sickness hit her hard. Grace helped her to the bathroom, held her hair, brought water. You're staying with me, Grace said firmly. Get some things. You're not staying in this house alone. But leaving the house meant facing Charleston. And Charleston had already decided she was the pathetic ex-wife who couldn't keep her man. At the women's shelter where she volunteered, the director, Patricia, gave her an awkward, pitying smile. "Tori, maybe you should take some time off until things settle down." The other volunteers whispered and averted their eyes. At Morning Brew Cafe, her weekly latte tradition, the barista, Emma, said, "Oh, Tori, I saw the news. I'm so sorry." Every table turned to stare. One woman said loudly enough to hear, "That's her, the ex-wife." Victoria left without ordering. First time in 8 years. That afternoon, Grace drove her to Jackson Foster's office. He was Charleston's best family law attorney, Grace said. He could help. Jack Foster was mid-40s, sharp-eyed and experienced. He read Brett's filing and his face darkened. "This is unconscionable. He filed on your anniversary?" He spread the papers across his desk. "Ms. Mitchell, there's no prenup. Adultery invalidates standard division. The property claims are fraudulent. I can see it already." Hope flickered in Victoria's chest. "So I can fight this?" "Absolutely. We can delay this divorce for months. With evidence of adultery, you're entitled to significant compensation. His timeline doesn't add up. We'll depose him, depose her, drag this out until he's desperate to settle. You have all the power here." Victoria smiled for the first time in 24 hours. "So I can stop this? Make him see what he did? We'll make him regret every—" The pain hit her mid-sentence, sharp cramping that doubled her over. "Tori?" Grace jumped up. "What's wrong?" "Blood, seeping through her jeans. We need to get her to a hospital," Jack said. "Now." Charleston Medical Center, emergency room, rushed in a wheelchair with Grace holding her hand. "Stay with me, honey. Stay with me." Dr. James Mitchell, the OBGYN, met them. "Mrs. Carson, you're experiencing threatened miscarriage." "No," Victoria sobbed. "Please, not my baby. Please." The ultrasound showed a tiny heartbeat, flickering but strong. "The baby's still there," Dr. Mitchell said, "but you're at high risk. Extreme stress can trigger early labor or miscarriage. You need complete bed rest. No stress, no conflict. Or you could lose this pregnancy." In the hospital room, monitors beeping, IV in her arm, Victoria faced an impossible choice. Fight Brett and risk losing the baby, or surrender everything to save the life inside her. Grace returned from calling Jack. "He says we can still fight. He'll handle the stress for you." Victoria looked at the ultrasound photo in her hand. A tiny peanut-sized baby. Her daughter. She called Jack from the hospital bed. "Give him what he wants. I'll sign everything." "Ms. Mitchell, you'd be giving up your rights to—" "I don't care about the house. I don't care about money. I care about my baby. That's all I have left. Please, just make this go away quickly." Jack's voice was gentle but firm. "Tori, if you sign this without fighting, you get nothing. The house equity, he can claim it all. Any debts he incurred, they become yours. His adultery, legally irrelevant if you don't contest. Are you absolutely sure?" She looked at the ultrasound photo again. "I'm sure. My baby comes first. Brett won. He doesn't even know it, but he won." 3 weeks later, the divorce was finalized. Fastest in Charleston County history. Victoria never went to court. Jack handled everything while she stayed on bed rest in Grace's guest room. She wasn't Tori Carson anymore. She was Tori Mitchell again. But who was that? She thought surrendering would end the nightmare. She had no idea Brett and the Hartleys were just getting started. 4 weeks after the divorce, Victoria lay in Grace's pale yellow guest room, 5 months pregnant, on modified bed rest. Her world had shrunk to these 4 walls, bathroom trips, and doctor visits. Depression settled over her like fog. Grace brought meals and handled errands, her wedding planning business suffering from the time spent caring for Victoria. She never complained, but Victoria saw the strain. "You don't have to do this," Victoria said. "I can manage." "You're my sister," Grace said firmly. "Of course I do." Meanwhile, Brett's new life unfolded on social media like a fairy tale. Charleston Magazine cover story, power couple Brett Carson and Vanessa Hartley. Photos at the Hartley estate, a 12,000 square foot mansion. Vanessa's 5-carat diamond ring. Wedding plans for November 20th at St. Michael's Cathedral. 300 guests. $500,000 budget. Registry at Tiffany's. Vanessa's Instagram showed weekly bump photos. 23 weeks today. Baby girl is so active. Each post was a knife wound. He'd replaced her in 8 weeks, like she'd never existed. Then Jack Foster called. Tori, we have a major problem. You need to come to my office. Grace drove her first time out of the house in 2 weeks. Victoria wore maternity leggings and an oversized sweater, no makeup. She felt like a ghost. In Jack's office, he slid a document across the desk. When you signed the divorce settlement, you agreed to split marital debts equally, but my paralegal noticed something. The house mortgage numbers didn't match county records. He showed her the paperwork. Brett took out a second mortgage on your house 18 months ago. He forged your signature. The numbers swam before her eyes. Original mortgage, $185,000, nearly paid off. Second mortgage, $275,000. Current house value, $320,000. The house was underwater by $140,000. That's impossible, Victoria said. I signed every document for our house. You signed the original mortgage 8 years ago. This second mortgage, your signature was forged. I had it analyzed. He showed her the slightly different signature. Professional forgery. He's been planning this for over a year and a half. Where did the money go? Jack pulled up bank records he'd subpoenaed during the divorce. Wire transfers to an offshore account in the Cayman Islands. He systematically stole from you while planning his exit. The legal reality was crushing. Because she'd signed the settlement without contesting, she was legally responsible for half of all marital debt, including the fraudulent mortgage. She owed $70,000 she didn't have. Jack had hired a forensic accountant named Lily Morgan who'd discovered something even worse. Brett's first contact with Vanessa had been at a Hartley Foundation gala, but Brett hadn't attended as a guest. He'd been hired as temporary catering staff. He couldn't afford a ticket, Lily explained. Someone got him in that room. I don't think it was romance, Jack said. I think Brett Carson was recruited. Victoria almost revealed everything then, almost said, I'm Victoria Ashford. I have billions. But she stopped herself. If she revealed her identity now, Brett would get access to her child. She needed proof first. That evening at Grace's house, Charleston police arrived. Sheriff Marcus Williams had a warrant for Tori Mitchell Carson. Theft of corporate property, embezzlement, and stalking. Brett had filed a police report claiming she'd stolen his work laptop, drained their joint bank account, and harassed him and Vanessa. He had a restraining order. The evidence was fabricated. The bank statement showed Brett had drained the account himself. But it didn't matter. Victoria, 5 months pregnant, was handcuffed. Grace screamed. She's been on bed rest for a month. She hasn't left the house. Neighbors filmed on their phones. By the time they reached the police station, the video was trending. #CharlestonArrest. Comments called her a crazy ex-wife who couldn't let go. In the Charleston County Detention Center holding cell, wearing an ill-fitting prison jumpsuit over her pregnant belly, Victoria hit bottom. One inmate recognized her. You're that girl whose man left her for the Hartley chick. Damn, girl, you look rough. Cold metal bench, fluorescent lights, baby kicking from stress. Hand on belly. I'm sorry, baby, I'm so sorry. She had one phone call, 2 choices. Call Grace and get bailed out quietly, stay hidden. Or call Sam Brennan, reveal her identity, and unleash the Ashford empire. With shaking hands, she dialed the number she hadn't called in 8 years. Sam answered on the first ring. Victoria, her voice broke. Sam, I'm in jail, I'm pregnant, and I need help. Where are you? Charleston County Detention. I'm coming, don't say another word to anyone. 2 hours later, bail appeared. $50,000 posted instantly. Charges mysteriously dropped. District attorney suddenly unavailable. Victoria was released with no explanation. Outside, a black Mercedes SUV waited. Sam Brennan stood beside it, silver-haired and impeccable in his suit, cold fury in his eyes. Victoria, get in the car. Inside the SUV, Sam's first words were, why didn't you call me 3 months ago? I thought I could handle it myself. Handle what? A corporate-sponsored takedown of an Ashford heir? He pulled out his phone and played an audio recording. Brett's voice. She suspects nothing. Playing housewife for 8 years made her soft. Richard Hartley's voice. Good. Once you marry Vanessa, we'll have standing when the Ashford heir surfaces. Brett. And if Tori's really pregnant like you think? Richard. Even better. Biological connection to Ashford bloodline is leverage. The recording ended. Sam explained it all. Richard Hartley had been trying to acquire Ashford Pharmaceuticals for 6 years. His new strategy was to neutralize the missing heiress. Find her, compromise her, control her through marriage or children. Brett had been identified as her husband 18 months into their marriage. Everything since had been orchestrated. He knew? Victoria whispered. The whole time? Huh? We have phone recordings going back 7.5 years. Every word Brett had ever said to her was a lie. Every touch, every I love you. All of it. Sam asked the question that would change everything. What do you want to do? I can extract you, new identity, disappear, raise your baby in peace. Or we can activate Protocol Omega, come home, take your place, and burn their entire world to ash. Victoria looked at Sam. Can we destroy them? Legally? A slight smile crossed his face. Victoria, your grandmother has been waiting 8 years for this call. When Maggie Ashford goes to war, she doesn't just win, she annihilates. Activate Protocol Omega. I want everything, every recording, every document. I want the world to see who Brett Carson really is. And I want Hartley Capital bankrupted. Sam's warning was clear. Once we start this, there's no going back. You'll be exposed. The press will be merciless. Your privacy is over forever. Victoria touched her belly. I've been hiding my whole life, Sam. Hiding from gold diggers. Hiding from my family's power. I'm done hiding. My daughter deserves a mother who fights. Let's show Brett Carson what a real Ashford looks like. The housewife died in that jail cell. The billionaire heiress was about to be reborn, and she was coming for blood. That night, a Gulfstream G650 waited at Charleston Executive Airport's private terminal. Victoria hadn't seen the Ashford corporate jet in 8 years. The smell of leather and subtle perfume brought back memories she'd tried to forget. During the flight to New York, Dr. Elena Rodriguez, a top OBGYN, examined her. Your baby is a fighter, just like her mother. MIFU fluids, vitamins, monitoring equipment. First-class medical care Victoria hadn't had access to in months. Grace stayed behind but promised to follow. Go get them, Tori. Make them pay. Come with me. I'll be right behind you. But this first part, you need to do alone. You need to remember who you are. Landing at Teterboro Airport at 11:47 p.m., a convoy of black SUVs waited, 6 former Secret Service agents as security. The road to Manhattan took them through streets Victoria hadn't seen in 8 years. The Ashford penthouse occupied the entire top floor of Ashford Tower, a building her family owned. 12,000 square feet, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Central Park. Everything exactly as she remembered. Waiting in the living room was Margaret Ashford, 78 years old, wheelchair-bound from severe arthritis, steel gray hair and a perfect chignon, dressed in Chanel despite the late hour. Her eyes missed nothing. Her first words, "You look terrible." "Good," means you're finally angry. No hug, no sympathy. That wasn't Maggie's way. 8 years, Victoria. 8 years playing dress-up. I told you that boy was a con artist the day you brought him to Sunday dinner. You didn't listen. You wanted to play Cinderella. How did that fantasy work out for you? I wanted real love, not someone after my money. And you got neither. You got a corporate spy who sold you out to our enemies. Love is a luxury we can't afford, Victoria. I tried to teach you that. Victoria straightened. You were wrong, grandmother. Love isn't the problem. Trusting the wrong person is. I don't regret loving him. I regret not seeing who he really was. But that ends now. Maggie's rare smile appeared. There she is. There's my granddaughter. Welcome home, Victoria Ashford. The next 3 days were medical priority. Teams of specialists stabilized her high-risk pregnancy. Nutritionist, physical therapist, new medication protocol. Days 4 through 7 became intelligence briefing. Sam Brennan's war room showed everything. Hartley capital structure, Brett's finances, Vanessa's fake pregnancy timeline. The evidence was damning. Brett's recruitment 18 months into the marriage. $100,000 cash payment, monthly stipend of $5,000, later increased to $15,000. Brett had hired a private investigator 6 months into marriage, discovered Tori's real identity from an old Harvard yearbook photo, and reported to Hartley immediately. For 7.5 years, Brett had sent weekly reports on Tori to Richard Hartley, her habits, friends, any mention of family. The goal, find connection to Ashford Industries. When Tori never accessed her trust, Hartley grew impatient. New strategy, Vanessa seduction, quick divorce, marry into Hartley family. Vanessa's pregnancy was entirely fake. Prosthetic reality purchased online, receipts found. Fake ultrasounds with metadata proving Photoshop. The entire scheme designed to pressure Tori into divorcing quickly while vulnerable. Every moment of our marriage was a lie, Victoria said. Yes, Sam confirmed. She touched her belly. Your father is a monster, but you, baby girl, you're going to have everything he never could. Truth, honor, real love. Week 2 focused on business education. Ashford Pharmaceuticals, founded 1952, current valuation $3.2 billion, 12 FDA-approved medications including a blockbuster heart drug, research facilities in Boston, San Diego, and Research Triangle, manufacturing in Puerto Rico and Ireland, 8,700 employees worldwide. Hartley wanted to acquire Ashford, strip assets, sell patents to Big Pharma. Estimated profit, $5 billion. Cost, destroy a 70-year legacy and eliminate 8,700 jobs. Maggie had held them off for 6 years, but she was 78, wheelchair-bound, and dying. She showed Victoria medical reports. Stage 3 pancreatic cancer. Maybe a year, probably less. It's time for you to take your place, Maggie said. Week 3 was physical transformation. Personal shopper. We're creating armor, not fashion. Custom maternity wear from Tom Ford, Armani, Carolina Herrera. Black, navy, charcoal. Power colors. Minimal but costly accessories from Cartier and Tiffany. Her long, unstyled hair was cut into a sharp, angled bob. Professional styling, sleek and controlled. Voice coach taught her to lower her register, measure her pace, eliminate uptalk. Body language expert worked on power poses and controlled gestures. Walking in heels, even pregnant. Confidence, not apology. She looked in the mirror wearing a black Armani maternity suit, Louboutin heels, and a Cartier watch. She barely recognized herself. Maggie wheeled in. Now that is an Ashford. Week 4 was strategy, the 3-phase plan. Phase 1, exposure, reveal Vanessa's fake pregnancy, expose Brett's fraud and corporate espionage. Public humiliation to destroy credibility. Phase 2, destruction, business warfare against Hartley Capital. Acquire every target they pursue. Bankrupt them through legitimate competition. Phase 3, checkmate. Victoria's public return and maximum moment. Complete exposure of conspiracy. Legal prosecution for fraud, forgery, and conspiracy. Timeline. Late September. Tori was 6.5 months pregnant. Brett and Vanessa's wedding. November 20th. Perfect timing. Sam asked, "Are you ready for this, Victoria? Once you do this, you can't hide again. Your face will be everywhere. Your privacy gone forever. Every decision questioned. Every relationship scrutinized." Victoria's answer was firm. "I've been hiding my whole life, Sam. First from gold diggers, then from heartbreak. My daughter deserves a mother who stands in the light. I'm ready. Let's burn their world down." The first strike came in week 4. Ashford Pharmaceuticals press release. Ashford Pharmaceuticals announces aggressive expansion into medical technology sector. New CEO V. Ashford leads charge. First acquisition, Meditech Solutions, $2.1 billion, all cash offer. Meditech Solutions was Hartley Capital's biggest target. They'd offered $800 million. Ashford outbid them massively and closed in 72 hours. Wall Street erupted. Headlines screamed, "Ashford awakens after decade of dormancy." Who is V. Ashford? Mystery CEO making billion-dollar moves. Richard Hartley called board members, livid. Who the hell is V. Ashford? Find out everything. He didn't connect it to Victoria yet. He thought the Ashford heir was still missing. Brett saw the news but didn't think much. He was focused on wedding planning. He mentioned to Vanessa, "My ex-wife's last name was Mitchell. Before that, who knows?" No connection made. They were planning a wedding. She was planning a war. And they had no idea the mystery CEO destroying their empire was the woman they'd thrown away. 6 weeks until the wedding, mid-October, the systematic destruction began. Week 1, Hartley Capital targeted a luxury senior living chain, $450 million title. Ashford counteroffered $650 million cash, closed in 48 hours. Hartley outmaneuvered again. Week 2, Hartley pursued a biotech startup doing cancer research. Ashford swooped in with $890 million. The pattern became obvious. Financial press asked, "Is Ashford targeting Hartley specifically?" Week 3, Ashford Industries held $400 million in Hartley Capital loans. Perfectly legal business arrangements, callable with 30-day notice. Victoria ordered them all called immediately. Hartley scrambled. They didn't have the liquidity. Wall Street noticed. Hartley Capital in crisis. Mystery competitor destroys every deal. Stock price plummeted. Investors grew nervous. Richard Hartley screamed at executives. At Hartley Capital offices, Brett's VP title became increasingly meaningless. The company was in crisis mode. His salary depended on Hartley Capital surviving. Wedding expenses were already committed. $500,000. Richard pulled Brett aside. "Your ex-wife, what was her maiden name?" "Mitchell. Why?" "Before that, any family connections?" "She said she was an orphan. No family at all." Richard's eyes narrowed. "You're certain?" "This Ashford attack started right after your divorce." Brett was defensive. "Tori was nobody, I'm sure." 4 weeks to the wedding, an investigative journalist named Nathan Cole received an anonymous, encrypted package. Return address, a friend of truth. Inside, Vanessa's complete medical records showing 0 pregnancies. Fake ultrasounds with metadata, proving Photoshop edits. Photos from Vanessa's trash of a silicone prosthetic belly with receipt from Authentic Bump's website. Text messages between Vanessa and a friend. "Brett is so stupid he believes everything. Dad says I just need to keep up the act until after the wedding. Once we're married, I'll have a miscarriage and we can try for real babies later. Can't believe this is actually working." Nathan verified everything with medical experts and digital forensics. He contacted Vanessa for comment. She hung up. The article ran on the Charleston Tribune front page. Hartley heiress faked pregnancy to trap fiancé. The piece detailed the elaborate scheme with fake ultrasounds, prosthetic belly, and systematic lies. It revealed text messages showing Vanessa knew it was fake and called her fiancé stupid for believing her. Medical records confirmed she'd never been pregnant. The article went viral. 2.4 million views in 6 hours. National news picked it up. Hashtag fake pregnancy trended on Twitter. Charleston society was shocked. Vanessa deleted Instagram, turned off her phone, and hid at the Hartley estate. Richard hired a crisis PR firm, but the statement rang hollow. "This is a vicious attack on our family. We're considering legal action." Brett read the article at work, his face going white. He realized the pregnancy was fake the entire time. He'd divorced Tori for nothing. He called Vanessa, straight to voicemail. He drove to the Hartley estate. The confrontation was explosive. Vanessa had no prosthetic on, clearly not pregnant. Brett demanded the truth. "Tell me it's not true. Tell me you didn't lie." Vanessa cried. "Brett, I can explain. I was going to tell you. I was scared you'd leave. My father said it was the only way to get you to divorce her fast." "I divorced my wife for this? You made me destroy my marriage for a lie," Richard entered. "Brett, you need to calm down. This is a minor setback. We'll issue a statement. You two will still marry. We'll say she miscarried from stress." "Are you insane? She was never pregnant." Richard's tone hardened. "You don't understand. This marriage is necessary. Hartley Capital is under attack. We need stability, family unity. Your wedding to Vanessa sends a message. We're strong." Brett finally saw it. This was never about love. This was business. What was Tori to you? What was I? Richard's slip was fatal. Your ex-wife was a potential obstacle to our Ashford acquisition. We needed her neutralized. Ashford, what does Tori have to do with? Forget I said that. Just focus on damage control. Brett left, got in his car with shaking hands, and Googled Ashford Pharmaceuticals in Victoria, Ashford. Old society photos from 10 years ago appeared. One showed a young woman at Harvard graduation. He zoomed in. It was her. It was Tori, his wife. His poor, simple, pathetic wife was a billionaire the entire time, and he never knew. 2 weeks to the wedding, Brett hired a private investigator he could barely afford after being fired from Hartley. The investigator confirmed, Tori equals Victoria Ashford, sole heiress, $3.2 billion. His wife had billions while he ate ramen. But then hope appeared. Tori had been pregnant when he left. If she kept the baby, he was the father. Parental rights meant leverage. A well-dressed man approached him at a coffee shop. Harper Sinclair, sympathetic demeanor, claimed to be a divorced dad who lost custody. I know what it's like to be shut out from your child, Harper said. You have rights. I'll help you. Legal fees, PR support. Every child deserves a father. Brett was suspicious. Why would you help me? Because I don't want another father to suffer what I did. The strategy, file for paternity rights, request DNA test, and joint custody. Paint Brett as a reformed man who wants to be a good father. Public sympathy. Billionaire shuts out baby's father. Brett's hope restored. I can be a father. I can fix this. Maybe Tori will see I've changed. Harper guided him, one step at a time. First, establish your rights. The court filing came November 10th. Petition to establish paternity and parental rights. Request for DNA test, shared custody, visitation, public statement. I made mistakes, but I want to know my child. Public reaction split 50-50. Legal experts noted he might have a case. Biology matters in family court. Sam expressed concern to Victoria. This could be a problem. Courts favor parental rights, even for terrible parents. He's the biological father. That's hard to fight. We might have to allow supervised visitation. Victoria's response was ice. No, he will never touch my daughter. Then we need him to voluntarily terminate rights. How do we make that happen? The trap was set. A settlement meeting was arranged at a neutral attorney's conference room. Harper, secretly working for Victoria, brokered it. Both parties agreed to talk before court. November 13th, the meeting. Victoria arrived visibly pregnant at 8 months, controlled and ice cold. Brett was emotional and desperate. His plea, Tori Victoria, I know I don't deserve forgiveness. I know what I did was unforgivable, but this is my child too. I'm not asking for money. I don't want anything from you. I just want a chance to be a father, please. Victoria read from a document. I'm willing to offer limited supervised visitation, 2 hours per week, supervised by court-appointed guardian. You will sign away any claim to inheritance or child support. You will sign a complete NDA about my identity and our history. You will acknowledge in writing the fraud and forgery you committed. You will pay restitution for the forged mortgage, $275,000. I don't have that money. I lost my job. Payment plan, 10 years, $2,300 per month. It's that or criminal charges for fraud. Brett accepted everything. Yes, fine, I'll pay it. I'll sign anything. I just want to know my child. That's all I want. His attorney, provided by Harper, said everything looked standard. 47 pages of legal documents. Brett signed page after page, initialing and dating. Page 34 contained the hidden clause buried in dense legalese. Party acknowledges conception occurred during period of documented fraud, forgery, and conspiracy to commit corporate espionage against the mother's family. His attorney didn't flag it because he worked for Victoria. Brett didn't read carefully, too emotional and desperate. He signed the last page. Thank you. Thank you so much, Tori. Victoria slid a different folder across the table. You should read this before you leave. He thought he'd won. He thought he was getting his child. He had no idea he had just signed his own death warrant. Brett opened the second folder with confusion. What is this? I already signed in. Oh, you certainly did, Victoria said coldly. Now read. The first document showed photos of Brett at the Hartley Foundation Gala 18 months into their marriage. Not as a guest, but as catering staff. A photo of him meeting Richard Hartley. Bank transfer of $100,000 to Brett's offshore account. Brett's face went white. Where did you get this? Keep reading. Monthly wire transfers. $5,000, then $15,000. Spanning the entire marriage. Memo lines, consulting fees for reporting on Tori. Total paid to Brett over 7 years. $847,000. Next, a private investigator report Brett had commissioned 6 months into marriage. Subject, Tori Mitchell Real Identity Research. Findings. Subject is Victoria Ashford, sole heir to Ashford Pharmaceuticals. Estimated net worth $3.2 billion. He'd known, 6 months after their wedding. Printed emails between Brett and Richard Hartley followed. Brett, she suspects nothing. Playing housewife has made her trusting. Richard, excellent. Continue gathering intel on family contacts. Brett, when do we make our move? Richard, when she's most vulnerable. Pregnancy would be ideal, gives us biological leverage. Victoria played an audio recording on her phone. Brett's voice, the Ashford fortune will be accessible through marital assets within 2 years. Richard's voice, then we need you married to Vanessa before she discovers who she married. Brett, what if Tori fights the divorce? Richard, then we destroy her credibility, arrest her, humiliate her, make her too broken to fight. The recording ended. Brett's face crumbled. No, this can't be. Every word documented, every payment traced, every lie recorded. You knew who I was 6 months into our marriage. Everything after that was corporate espionage. Sam Brennan stepped forward and pulled out the document stack Brett had just signed, turning to page 34. Mr. Carson, do you remember what you just signed? You acknowledged that conception of this child occurred during a period of documented fraud. You admitted in writing that you perpetrated fraud on the mother throughout the marriage. You acknowledged conspiracy to commit corporate espionage. Brett's attorney revealed the truth. I should mention, Mr. Carson, I work for Ashford Industries. I've been on their payroll for 6 years. Everything you told me? I reported directly to Ms. Ashford. He stood and exited. Harper Sinclair entered. Hello, Brett. Harper Sinclair. Not a divorced dad, corporate investigator specializing in espionage cases. I've been documenting your activities for Ms. Ashford for 3 months. Thank you for being so cooperative. Victoria explained the full scope. Every step was planned, Brett. The leaked article about Vanessa's fake pregnancy, I commissioned it. Your arrest dropped because I wanted you free for this meeting. Harper approaching you, my investigator. Your attorney, my employee. The fair settlement, bait. What Brett actually signed, legal acknowledgement of fraud during conception, admission of conspiracy against mother's family, waiver of all parental rights buried in legal language, confession to forgery, binding arbitration clause, preventing any lawsuits to regain rights. You can't do this. I have rights. Biological father, Sam cut him off. You waived those rights. In writing, notarized, filed. By acknowledging fraud during conception, you admitted the pregnancy occurred during criminal activity. Family courts don't grant rights to criminals who defrauded the mother. Victoria stood, 8 months pregnant and undeniable. You wanted to know if I was pregnant, Brett? Yes, I'm carrying your biological child, a daughter. Her name will be Hope Margaret Ashford. She will never know your name. She will never see your face. You will have no claim, no rights, no access. Tori, please. I'm sorry, I did love you at first. My name is Victoria. Tori died the night you left her. And you never loved me. You loved what you thought you could take from me. She played another recording. Brett's voice to Richard. I almost feel bad. She really thinks I love her. Richard, guilt is expensive. You're being paid to overcome it. Brett, it's just, she's so trusting, so pathetic. Brett wept. I was a different person then. I've changed. No, you've been caught. That's different. Sam added the final blow. Oh, and Mr. Carson, those fraud charges from earlier? They're being refiled. Federal level now. Forgery, wire fraud, conspiracy to commit corporate espionage. Federal prosecutors are very interested in your relationship with Hartley Capital. Trial date set for January 15th. You're looking at 7 to 10 years. Federal prison. Security guards appeared. "Mr. Carson, you need to leave now." Brett was dragged out, shouting, "Victoria, please, I'm sorry, I'm sorry." She didn't look at him. She stared out the window, hand on her belly. Outside, photographers waited, tipped off by Victoria's team. Brett was escorted out in broad daylight, cameras flashing. Headlines wrote themselves, "Con man trapped by billionaire victim in brilliant legal maneuver." That night in the Ashford penthouse, Victoria sat by the window overlooking Central Park, baby kicking strongly, hand on belly. "It's over, little one. He's gone." But she felt hollow, empty. "Why don't I feel better?" Maggie wheeled in. "Because revenge doesn't heal wounds, child. It just closes them. You won the war, but you're still bleeding inside." "I destroyed him." "Why does it still hurt?" "Because he really did destroy something in you, and winning doesn't bring it back." Victoria's doubts surfaced. "Did I go too far? He's going to prison. He'll never see his daughter. Am I becoming you, grandmother? Cold and ruthless?" Maggie paused. "Yes, you are, and that terrifies me." At 11:47 p.m., sudden pain struck. Sharp cramping, worse than before. Victoria tried to stand. Her legs wouldn't support her. "Maggie!" She collapsed, heavy bleeding, baby kicking frantically, then stopping. "No, no, please, not now, not after everything." Maggie called 911. "My granddaughter is 32 weeks pregnant and bleeding heavily." Ambulance 4 minutes away. Victoria losing consciousness. Last thought, "I sacrificed everything for revenge, and I'm losing her anyway." She'd won the war, but was she about to lose the one thing that mattered most? Mount Sinai Hospital emergency room. 11:58 p.m. Ambulance arrival. Victoria barely conscious. Blood pressure dangerously high at 178 over 112. Baby's heart rate dropping. Elena Rodriguez, OB specialist, made the call. "We need to deliver now. Emergency C-section. The placenta is abrupting. Baby's in distress. We can't wait." "It's too early, only 32 weeks. I'm sorry, it's deliver now or we lose you both." 12:17 a.m. in the operating room. Victoria sedated but aware. Bright lights, cold air, beeping monitors, scalpel, retractors. Sound of baby crying, weak, reedy, terrified. It's a girl, 4 pounds, 2 ounces. Victoria barely saw her. Tiny, purple, struggling, oxygen mask too big for her face. Rushed away on an isolette. Will she? We're doing everything we can. Recovery room, 3:42 a.m. Victoria woke to incision pain, catheter, IV lines, monitors. Room empty, except Maggie in her wheelchair beside the bed, holding her hand. First time Victoria had seen Maggie cry in her entire life. Is she alive? Yes, barely. She's in the NICU. They have her on a ventilator. Her lungs aren't fully developed. The next 48 hours will tell us if she makes it. Hope. Her name is Hope Margaret Ashford, after you. Don't name her after me. I'm a monster. Name her Hope because that's what she is. Your hope for something better. Gator Rodriguez reported the medical reality. Your blood pressure caused placental abruption. The stress of recent weeks likely triggered it. Pregnancy complications from sustained trauma response. Victoria understood. This is my fault. I stressed myself into early labor. My revenge did this to her. Sam arrived at 4:30 a.m., still in yesterday's suit, bringing news. The media coverage is everywhere. Brett's arrest, your victory. I don't care. I don't care about any of it. My baby is dying and I did this to her. 6 a.m., first NICU visit. Victoria in a wheelchair, too weak to walk. The NICU was quiet except for beeping monitors. Hope's incubator was a plastic box with a tiny human inside. 4 pounds, 2 ounces. Tubes everywhere. Ventilator breathing for her. IV lines and tiny feet. Heart monitor showing weak but steady rhythm. Victoria couldn't hold her, couldn't touch her. Too fragile. She could only watch through plastic. I'm sorry, baby. I'm so sorry. Mommy was angry. Mommy wanted revenge. And now you're paying for it. The 48-hour vigil began. Day 1. Hope's stats unstable. Oxygen levels dropping repeatedly. Doctors doing everything they could. Victoria refused to leave the NICU, slept in a chair beside the incubator. Maggie beside her in her wheelchair. Two generations of Ashford women watching, waiting, praying. Grace flew in from Charleston and found Victoria unwashed, exhausted, hollow-eyed. Tori, oh honey. First hug Victoria had in months. She broke down completely. I killed her, Grace. I killed my own baby for revenge. Day 2, 2:34 a.m. Alarms blared. Hope's oxygen saturation plummeted. Code Blue called. Doctors flooded the NICU. Victoria forced back, watching through the window as they worked on her daughter. Please, please don't take her. Take me instead. 14 minutes of resuscitation. Longest 14 minutes of Victoria's life. Finally, baby's heart rate stabilized. Oxygen levels recovering. Dr. Rodriguez, she's fighting. She's a fighter. Victoria slid down the wall to the floor in complete emotional collapse. What have I done? What have I become? I destroyed a man, ruined lives. For what? I'm just like Maggie. Cold, ruthless, empty. Sam sat beside her on the floor. Victoria, I need to tell you something. Your grandmother made the same mistake. When your mother was born, Maggie was in a corporate war, worked through pregnancy, high stress. Your mother was premature too. Maggie always blamed herself. That's why she became so cold. She never forgave herself. Don't become her. Day 3, morning, Dr. Rodriguez had good news. Hope is off the ventilator, breathing on her own with oxygen support, heart rate strong and steady. She's going to make it. She'll need weeks in NICU, but she'll make it. Victoria was allowed to put her hand in the incubator. Hope's tiny fingers wrapped around her pinky, smallest, strongest grip Victoria ever felt. Hey, baby girl, mommy's here. I'm not going anywhere. This tiny human fought for life while Victoria fought for revenge. She's stronger than I'll ever be. Meanwhile, Brett's trial proceeded at the federal courthouse. Day 3 of proceedings, evidence overwhelming. Recordings, bank transfers, forged documents. Brett's attorney was a public defender. He couldn't afford private counsel. The case was hopeless. Verdict? Guilty on all counts. Fraud, forgery, conspiracy. Sentencing, 8 years federal prison. Judge's words, you betrayed your wife in the cruelest way imaginable. You deserve every day of this sentence. Brett's statement, Your Honor, I know I don't deserve mercy, but I just learned I have a daughter, a premature daughter fighting for life. I'll never meet her, and that's my punishment. I destroyed the only good thing in my life. 8 years in prison, I deserve more. Escorted out in handcuffs. News coverage minimal, overshadowed by Ashford baby drama. Brett headed to FCI Butner, medium security federal resident, his mother Susan in the courtroom, weeping. Mom, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. Victoria saw the news on Sam's tablet. He's going to prison. She was holding Hope's finger. I don't care, Sam. I spent months planning his destruction, and right now all I care about is this tiny human breathing. Grace observed, You won, Tori. He's going to prison. Hartley Capital is bankrupt. Did I? Because I feel like I lost. I lost myself. I almost lost her. That's not winning. That's just surviving. 6 weeks later, NICU graduation day. Hope now 6 pounds 4 ounces. Healthy, strong, ready to go home. Victoria fully healed from surgery. First time holding her without tubes and wires. We're going home, baby girl. We're going home. The Ashford penthouse nursery was prepared. Soft yellows and whites, not pink. Crib, rocker, monitor, everything perfect. But it felt sterile. Maggie commented, It looks like a hospital, not a home. First night home. 2 a.m. feeding. Victoria rocking Hope in the dark, looking out at Manhattan skyline. I won, baby girl. I destroyed them all. So why do I feel empty? Hope's eyes looked up at her mother, innocent, trusting, loving. She didn't know about revenge or betrayal, only knew Mommy was here. Victoria's tears fell. I'm sorry you'll grow up without a father. I'm sorry I chose revenge over peace. I'm sorry I almost lost you because I was so angry. I promise you, from now on, we choose love, not hate. She destroyed her enemies. But could she rebuild herself? The hardest battle was just beginning. 3 months after Hope's birth, Victoria ran Ashford Industries from her home office with the baby monitor always on. Video conferences with the board while Hope napped. Success felt hollow. The empire was stronger than ever. Stock price at all-time high. Recent merger revolutionary. Victoria featured in Forbes, Fortune, Wall Street Journal, the billionaire who rose from the ashes. But the penthouse felt like a gilded cage. Staff everywhere but no real connection. Maggie's health rapidly declining. Victoria successful but isolated. January 15th, a hand-addressed envelope arrived. Return address, Pawhuska, Oklahoma. Victoria recognized the handwriting. Brett's mother, Susan. The letter read, Dear Ms. Ashford, my name is Susan Carson. I'm Brett's mother. You don't know me, but I feel I know you. My son talked about you every Sunday when he'd call home. For 7 years, he told me about his wife, Tori. I didn't know until recently that you were Victoria Ashford. I didn't know he'd lied to you. I didn't know what he'd done. When I found out, I was horrified. I raised him better than that. But somewhere along the way, I failed him. I'm not writing to ask for mercy for him. He's in prison, and that's where he deserves to be. I'm writing because I saw in the news that you had a baby, a little girl, my granddaughter. I know I have no right to ask this. I know you owe me nothing. But I'm 62 years old. I work 2 jobs, and that baby is the only family I have left who's innocent. Could I meet her? Once, just once? I won't ask for more. I just want to see her face, to know she's real, to tell her someday that someone in her father's family loved her. I understand if you say no. I would if I were you. Respectfully, Susan Carson. Victoria read it 3 times, looking at Hope sleeping in her bassinet. This woman lost her son to greed in prison, an innocent victim like so many others. What do I do? The debate raged. Sam said she owed Susan nothing. Grace suggested practicing forgiveness. But Maggie's opinion surprised Victoria most. Maggie, very frail now, watched Victoria hold Hope. Let her come. You, Maggie Ashford, showing mercy? I've made a lot of mistakes, Victoria. The biggest? Never forgiving anyone, never showing mercy. I'm dying, and I'm dying alone because I couldn't forgive. Don't be me, please. Victoria wrote back, Mrs. Carson, you may visit. This Sunday, 2 p.m. at my residence in New York. This is not a regular arrangement. This is a one-time meeting. But you deserve to meet Hope. And Hope deserves to know that not everyone in her father's family was cruel. Victoria Ashford, Sunday, January 22nd. Susan arrived, simple woman, early 60s, worn hands from hard work. Wearing her Sunday best, a 10-year-old dress, clean and pressed. Carrying a hand-knitted baby blanket in yellow. Victoria was guarded, Hope in her arms. Susan wept immediately upon seeing Hope. She has Brett's eyes, but your strength, I can see it. The conversation was painful but necessary. Susan, I want you to know I didn't raise him to be cruel. His father left when Brett was 6. I worked 3 jobs to keep us afloat. Maybe that's where it started, him seeing me struggle, becoming obsessed with money. I thought I was teaching him to work hard. Maybe I taught him to be greedy instead. You didn't make him lie. You didn't make him betray me. Those were his choices. I know, but I'm still sorry. As his mother, I'm sorry. Susan asked, Can I hold her, just for a minute? Victoria paused, weighing risks, then saw only grief and love in this woman's face. Yes. Susan held Hope, tiny and perfect, weeping quietly. Thank you. Thank you for this. I know what my son did to you, and you still showed me kindness. She handed Hope back. I won't ask for more. This was enough. Victoria surprised herself. You can visit once a month, supervised, because my daughter deserves to know that love exists, even in broken families. Because you're innocent, and I'm tired of punishing innocent people. Susan could barely speak through tears. I'll never be able to thank you enough. Love her, that's enough. After Susan left, Maggie observed, That was kind, Victoria. Kinder than I would have been. You're better than me, finally. Victoria reflected while holding Hope. I spent so much energy on revenge, and it didn't heal anything. Maybe mercy will. Grace called. Tori, I need you to come back to Charleston, not to the house, but to the city, the foundation you wanted to start. Let's do it. Help other women. Not from a penthouse, in the community. What are you thinking? Charleston Women's Shelter needs funding. Legal aid needs support. You have $3.2 billion, and a story women need to hear. Stop hiding. Start helping. The idea took root. The Victoria Ashford Foundation for women escaping financial abuse, free legal aid, forensic accounting, safe housing, everything Victoria needed when Brett destroyed her. Maggie gave her blessing. Do it. Build something good from all this pain. That's the real victory, not destroying him, building something he could never destroy. Victoria decided, I'm going back to Charleston, not to hide, to help. Hope deserves a mother who builds, not destroys. She'd won the war. Now it was time to win the peace, and that battle would be fought not with money or power, but with mercy and purpose. 6 months after Hope's birth, March, Victoria returned to Charleston as Victoria Ashford. Openly, publicly, she rented office space in the historic district, the Victoria Ashford Foundation for Survivors of Economic Abuse. The mission? Free legal representation, forensic accounting services, emergency housing, job training and placement. Everything she needed and didn't have. The staff included Grace as Director of Operations, Jack Foster as Chief Legal Counsel, Lily Morgan as Head of Forensic Accounting, 15 attorneys, 8 accountants, 20 support staff, press conference at Charleston Women's Shelter. Victoria stood at the podium, Hope in a carrier on her chest. National and local press, cameras from CN, local news, streaming live. Her statement began simply, My name is Victoria Ashford. 8 years ago, I made a choice. She told the abbreviated story. Wanted to know if someone could love her for who she was, not what she had. Met a man who seemed genuine. They married, built a life. What she didn't know, he'd been recruited by a rival company to manipulate her. For 7 years, I was targeted, lied to, and strategically betrayed. When I was most vulnerable, pregnant and alone, he discarded me. I was arrested on false charges. I nearly lost my daughter. The emotional truth landed hard. I'm sharing this because I want other women to know. You're not alone. Financial abuse is invisible. It's embarrassed silence, hidden shame. I had billions and I still couldn't protect myself from a sophisticated con. If it can happen to me, it can happen to anyone. The foundation's promise, $50 million initial funding, free services for any woman escaping economic control. Investigate, advocate, prosecute, protect. She announced testimony before Congress. New legislation, the Economic Abuse Prevention Act, stronger penalties for financial fraud in domestic relationships, better protections for victims. No woman should have to choose between her safety and her survival. Media reaction was overwhelming. Headlines praised her. Social media trended #Ashford Foundation. Thousands of women shared their stories. Victoria was no longer the cold billionaire destroying enemies. Now she was a survivor, helping survivors. Sympathetic, powerful, inspirational. 2 months later, in Washington, D.C., she testified before the House Financial Services Committee. Hope was with a nanny in the gallery, Victoria's insistence that she be present. Her testimony laid out the facts. 1 in 4 women experience economic abuse, forged signatures, loans in victims' names, drained accounts. Current laws require victims to prove intent, nearly impossible. Abusers exploit legal loopholes while victims bear financial consequences. Her personal story added weight. My ex-husband forged my signature on a $275,000 mortgage. He drained our accounts while reporting to a rival corporation. He had me arrested to destroy my credibility. If I, with unlimited resources, struggled to fight back, how can average women? The proposed legislation included automatic fraud investigation for signature discrepancies, Burden of proof shifts to alleged signer, criminal penalties for financial abuse, and a victim protection fund. Bipartisan support was rare but unanimous here. The bill passed the House 387 to 43, the Senate 78 to 19. Signed into law, Ashford Economic Abuse Prevention Act. Victoria attended the signing ceremony with the president. Meanwhile, Brett and FCI Butner, 18 months into his 8-year sentence, worked as a library assistant for 12 cents an hour, sharing a cell with 2 others. Life was monotonous, degrading, endless. He watched Victoria's congressional testimony on prison TV, saw her powerful, composed, helping thousands, saw hope in the gallery, a toddler now, happy. That's my daughter. That could have been my life. He wrote Victoria monthly letters she never responded to. He wrote anyway, apologies, regrets, understanding why she hated him. His mother visited monthly, driving 8 hours each way, bringing photos of hope that Victoria allowed. Brett wept looking at them. She's beautiful, Mom. She's perfect. And she'll never know me. He finally truly understood what he lost. Not money or power. The woman who loved him when he was nobody. The daughter who could have been his world. I traded diamonds for dirt, and I deserve every consequence. Back in Charleston, 6 months after launch, the foundation had helped 247 women and recovered $12.4 million in fraudulent debts. Victoria worked late reviewing cases when a knock came at 7:30 p.m. The receptionist had left. A woman, early 30s, bruised face, frightened eyes stood in the doorway. "Are you Victoria Ashford? I saw you on TV. I need help." Her story poured out. Melissa Thompson, 32, married 6 years, husband controlling, violent. She discovered he'd taken loans in her name totaling $180,000. She wanted to leave but had no money, nowhere to go. "You said you help women like me. Can you?" Victoria didn't respond as CEO but as survivor. "Yes, I can help you. I will help you." She sat with Melissa for 3 hours, calling attorney, accountant, safe house coordinator. Personally drove Melissa to the shelter. "You're safe now. We've got you." Driving home, Victoria realized this helping was the real victory. Not Brett in prison or Hartley Capital bankrupted. This woman's safe tonight because Victoria fought back. This is what it was all for. She'd spent months destroying enemies. Now she'd spent months building hope. And the woman she was becoming was someone she could finally respect. 1 year after Hope's birth, October, the foundation had grown to 3 locations across South Carolina, Charleston and Columbia, Greenville. 1,247 women helped in the first year. $47.2 million in fraudulent debts recovered. 89 criminal cases prosecuted with 87 convictions. National model with 12 states replicating the program. Victoria split time between Charleston and New York, 3 days and 2 days respectively. She'd rented a house in Charleston's historic district. Not the old house, she couldn't bear that. Simple but beautiful with a garden for hope, porch swing, normal neighborhood. Neighbors knew who she was, but it treated her normally. Hope at 1 year walked early at 11 months. First words, Mama. Gace for Grace. Nana for Susan. Healthy, happy, thriving. No developmental delays from premature birth. Her personality, determined, fearless, loving. Nathan Cole, the investigative journalist who broke Vanessa's fake pregnancy story, now volunteered at the foundation providing investigative services pro bono. He helped women gather evidence of financial abuse, working alongside Victoria with professional respect. The gradual friendship began with work questions evolving into longer coffee breaks. Conversations shifted from cases to life. Nathan was divorced, 1 daughter in shared custody. He understood trust issues and didn't push. After a difficult case where a woman returned to her abuser, Victoria was devastated. "We did everything right. Why did she go back?" Nathan replied, "Because leaving is terrifying. You of all people know that. You had billions and you still almost didn't fight back." Victoria confessed, "I didn't fight back. I surrendered. I signed away everything to protect Hope. Everyone thinks I'm so strong. I was weak." "No, you were a mother protecting her child. That's not weakness. You're allowed to have been scared, Victoria. You're allowed to have made the choice you made. and you're allowed to stop punishing yourself for it. It was the first time Victoria had talked about this vulnerability with anyone except Grace. Nathan didn't judge, didn't fix, just listened. Maggie's decline accelerated. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer diagnosed 6 months ago in New York. She refused aggressive treatment. I'm 78, I've had my time. Hospice care at home. Victoria flew back weekly. A difficult conversation came when Maggie, in bed frail but mind sharp, watched hope toddle around the room. First genuine smile in weeks. Victoria, I need to tell you something. I was wrong about everything. I taught you love was weakness. I was wrong. I taught you trust was foolish. I was wrong. I taught you mercy was for the weak. I was so wrong. Her apology continued. You became me. For a few months you became me. Cold, ruthless, focused only on destroying enemies. And I watched you nearly lose everything that mattered. I'm sorry. I'm sorry I made you think that was strength. Victoria held Maggie's hand, first time in years. You were protecting yourself. You'd been hurt too. Yes, and I spent 60 years punishing the world for it. Don't do that, please. Let that journalist take you to dinner. Let yourself heal. Be happy. That's the real victory. 2 weeks later, November 3rd at 4:47 a.m., Maggie passed peacefully in her sleep. Victoria was beside her, holding her hand. Last words the day before. You did what I never could. You won without losing yourself. I'm proud of you. The funeral at St. Patrick's Cathedral in New York drew 800 attendees. Business leaders, politicians, society figures. Eulogies were cold, corporate, impersonal. Victoria's speech was different. My grandmother was brilliant, ruthless, and deeply wounded. She built an empire. She destroyed enemies. She won every battle. But she lost the war that mattered, the war for connection. She died with money, power, and very few people who really loved her. I'm sharing this not to shame her memory, but to honor her final wish. She told me, don't be me, be better. So I'm trying. Every day, I'm trying. The will reading 1 week later revealed Maggie's estate of $287 million separate from the company. Bequests to staff, charities, museums. To Victoria, everything and a letter. Maggie's final letter. Victoria, if you're writing this, I'm gone. Good. I was tired. I'm leaving you everything because you're the only one who matters. But more importantly, I'm leaving you advice I should have given 30 years ago. Love is not weakness. Trust is not foolishness. Mercy is not failure. I learned this too late. You learned it just in time. That baby girl Hope, she saved you. She stopped you from becoming me. Marry that journalist. I saw the way he looks at you, like you're extraordinary and ordinary at the same time. That's real love. Build a life, not just an empire. And know this, I'm proud of you. I never said it enough. I'm so proud of who you've become. Don't mourn me long. I had my time. Make the most of yours. With love, yes, I'm capable of it after all, Maggie. Victoria wept. Not grief tears, but release tears. Permission to live, finally. Thank you, Maggie. I'll try. 6 months after Maggie's death, Grace called Victoria into the office, grinning. She showed an elegant, simple, perfect ring. Marcus proposed. I said yes. Marcus Thompson, the pro bono financial advisor who volunteered at the foundation, had met Grace 8 months ago. They fell in love over his spreadsheets and case files. Good man, geeked stable. Victoria felt pure joy. Grace, this is wonderful. First uncomplicated happiness in years, Grace blushed. And I'm pregnant. 8 weeks. More tears, happy ones. Our kids will grow up together. Hope we'll have a cousin friend. Victoria realized life was moving forward, not stuck in past, revenge, or pain, building a future with people who loved her. 2 weeks later, after a foundation event, Nathan and Victoria were the last ones in the office, cleaning up. Can I ask you something? Nathan said. Sure. Would you like to have dinner with me? Not work dinner, actual date dinner. Victoria's fear response was immediate. Nathan, I don't know if I'm ready. Brett destroyed my ability to trust. I don't want to hurt you when I can't. Victoria, I'm not asking you to marry me. I'm asking you to have dinner. One meal. We talk, we laugh, that's it. And if it's terrible, we go back to being colleagues. But if it's nice, maybe we do it again sometime. No pressure, no expectations, just possibility. Victoria looked at this man, kind and patient, who saw her clearly, thought of Maggie's letter. Marry that journalist, thought of Grace's happiness, thought of Hope deserving to see healthy love. Yes, okay, dinner. Charleston Fig Restaurant, not fancy by Victoria's choice. Too many memories of fake life. Casual, warm, real. Nathan told stories about his journalism career. Victoria laughed. She realized she hadn't laughed like this in years. The conversation wasn't about work, Brett, or trauma. Favorite books, terrible movies, Hope's latest antics. Nathan's daughter, Emma, age 7, loved dinosaurs. Hope and Emma should have a play date. Victoria was honest. I need to be clear about something. I'm broken in ways I'm still discovering. I have trust issues, control issues, fear. I come with a lot of baggage. We all do. I'm divorced. I have my own damage. But I'm not asking you to be perfect. I'm just asking you to be honest. Can you do that? Yes, I can do honest. Then that's enough. We'll figure it out the rest as we go. He walked her to her car without trying to kiss her. Can I see you again? Yes, I'd like that. Driving home, she felt light for the first time in years. That night, tucking Hope in, now 18 months and chatty, Hope asked, Mama happy? Yes, baby. Mama's happy. Good, I love Mama. I love you too. So much. After Hope slept, Victoria sat on the porch swing. Charleston evening warm with crickets and Spanish moss swaying. She thought about the journey from victim to victor to human. I'm not just surviving anymore. I'm living. She'd destroyed her enemies, built her empire. Now she was building something even harder. A real life. Terrifying and beautiful all at once. 2 years after Hope's birth, the foundation had expanded to 15 locations across 12 states. 4,892 women helped. 347 million in fraudulent debts recovered. 287 criminal convictions. Model legislation passed in 31 states. International inquiries from Canada, UK, Australia. Victoria and Nathan had been dating for 6 months. Slow, intentional, not living together. Victoria's boundary. I want Hope to see healthy pace. Weekly dates, dinners, museum trips, walks. Hope and Emma best friends. Real relationship with arguments, makeups, growth. 6 months into dating, after putting Hope to bed, Nathan sat with Victoria on the porch swing. I need to tell you something. I love you. I know it's only been 6 months. I know you need time, but I need to be honest. I love you. I'm not asking you to say it back. I'm just being honest, like we promised. Victoria's panic and fear rose. Nathan, I don't know if I can. Brett said he loved me. It was all lies. How do I know you're different? You don't. You're taking a risk. That's what love is. I can't prove I'm different. I can only show you every day. But I'm not asking you to say it back. I'm staying, unless you ask me to go. Why? Why do you love me? Because you're the strongest person I know and the most vulnerable. Because you turned your pain into purpose. Because you're a fierce mother and a compassionate advocate. Because you're real, no masks, just you. Victoria felt it for the first time, believing someone could love her for her, not money, image, or power. Just her. I don't know if I love you yet, but I want to try. That's enough. We'll figure out the rest. 6 months later, Brett's final letter arrived from prison. Different tone than others. Not begging or apologizing again. Acceptance. Victoria, this is my last letter. I know you never read them, but Sam Brennan confirms they're received. That's enough. I'm writing to tell you I'm letting go. Not of my remorse. I'll carry that forever. But of my hope that someday you'll forgive me. You won't. You shouldn't. I destroyed the best thing in my life. I deserve every consequence. I saw a news article about your foundation. You've helped nearly 5,000 women. You turned your pain into something beautiful. I wish I could say I inspired that. I didn't. Your strength did. I'm writing this because I need you to know I'm not a threat anymore. I'll be released in 2.5 years with good behavior. When I am, I won't contact you. I won't try to see Hope. I signed away my rights. I meant it. My mother tells me Hope is happy. That's enough. I don't deserve more. I hope you've found peace. I hope you found love. Real love, not the lie I sold you. Thank you for letting my mother know Hope. That grace when you owed us nothing is something I'll never understand, but will always be grateful for. Live well, Victoria. You deserve every happiness. Goodbye, Brett. Victoria read it 3 times. No anger, no pain, just closure. She showed Nathan. He's letting go. Are you? Yes, I think I finally am. She wrote back for the first time in 2.5 years. Brett, I received your letter. It will be the last I read. You're right, I won't forgive you. But I don't hate you anymore either. Hate was poisoning me. I chose to let it go for my daughter's sake. Hope is happy, healthy, and loved. She knows you exist. When she's old enough, I'll tell her the truth. All of it. The good you were capable of and the harm you chose. I won't lie to protect you. But I won't lie to hurt you either. She'll know facts and make her own choices. Your mother is a good woman. Hope loves her. That relationship will continue. I hope prison gives you what you need to become who you should have been. Don't write again. This chapter is closed. Victoria, 1 year later, Hope's 3rd birthday party at the Charleston Foundation Community Center. Not fancy, bounce house, pizza, face painting, 30 kids from neighborhood and foundation families. Grace and Marcus with baby boy James, 4 months old. Susan brought homemade cupcakes, Hope's favorite. Nathan and Emma helped with games. Real community, real joy. Victoria watched Hope running with other kids, laughing, surrounded by people who loved her genuinely. Grace pregnant again with twins due in 4 months. Nathan caught her eye across the yard, smiling. Susan holding baby James, content. This was victory. Not Brett in prison, or Hartley capital destroyed, or billions in the bank. This, love, community, purpose, peace. Nathan approached. Hey, got a minute? He led her to the garden area, quiet, and got down on one knee. Victoria Ashford, I'm not rich. I can't compete with your world. But I love you, the real you, not the heiress, not the CEO, you. I love how you fight for women others ignore. I love how you're learning to trust again. I love watching you be Hope's mother. He pulled out a simple ring. Will you marry me? No hesitation this time. Yes. Yes? Really? Victoria laughed and cried. Yes, I love you. Yes. Hope ran over. Mama, now fan, why kissing? Because I'm happy, baby. Good, I like now fan. Emma, does this mean we're going to be sisters? Nathan, yeah, kiddo, I think it does. 6 months later, the wedding. Small ceremony at Charleston Battery. Sunset, November, cool and beautiful. 40 guests, real friends, foundation sit-out. Susan, close colleagues. Grace was maid of honor at 8 months pregnant with twins. Emma was flower girl. Hope was princess baby, her choice. Victoria's dress, simple, elegant Carolina Herrera. Not trying to prove anything, just beautiful. Nathan's vows. Victoria, you taught me that healing isn't linear. You taught me strength isn't the absence of fear. It's moving forward despite it. I promise to be patient when you're scared. I promise to be honest even when it's hard. I promise to love Hope as my own. And I promise no secrets. Ever. Victoria's vows. Nathan, you taught me I could trust again. You taught me love isn't about perfection. It's about showing up. I promise to be brave even when I want to run. I promise to let you in even when I want to hide. I promise to build a life with you, not just survive one. And I promise I choose you. Every day I choose you. The kiss brought applause, tears, joy. Hope yelled, Mama married Nafan. Pure happiness. Small restaurant reception, private room, dancing, toasts, laughter. Grace's toast. To the woman who turned her pain into power and her power into purpose. Susan's toast. To second chances and the grace to accept them. Sam Brennan flew in from NYC. To Margaret Ashford, who would be so proud. First dance, Victoria and Nathan. Song, The Best Is Yet to Come. Victoria whispered, I never thought I'd be here. Where? Happy, truly, completely happy. Well, you are, and you deserve it. Brett Carson was released from federal prison after serving 5 years for good behavior. He moved to Oklahoma near his mother. He works as a financial literacy teacher at a community college. He has never contacted Victoria or Hope. He married in 2032 and has 2 children. He tells his wife everything about his past. Richard Hartley died of a heart attack in federal prison in 2029. Hartley Capital's assets were liquidated. Proceeds went to Victims Restitution Fund. Vanessa Hartley, now Vanessa Moore, married her accountant fiancé in 2028. They have 3 children and live quietly in Portland. She occasionally volunteers at a women's shelter using a fake name. She never speaks publicly about 2025. Susan Carson remains part of Hope's life. She visits monthly and is Gamma Susie. Hope knows Susan is her biological father's mother, but calls Nathan Dad. Susan and Nathan have a warm relationship. Grace Patterson Thompson had twin girls in 2027 and another son in 2029. She runs the Victoria Ashford Foundation's Charleston operations. Her children and Hope are inseparable. The Victoria Ashford Foundation expanded to 47 locations across North America and Europe. It has helped over 28,000 women and recovered $2.1 billion in fraudulent debts. The Ashford Economic Abuse Prevention Act was adopted in all 50 states in 12 countries. Nathan Cole continues investigative journalism and volunteers at the foundation. He and Victoria had a son, William, named after Sam Brennan, in 2029. Hope Ashford, now age 12, is a straight-A student who volunteers at the foundation on weekends. She knows her biological father's story, the truth, all of it. She has chosen not to contact him. She says, Nathan is my real dad. The other guy is just biology. Maybe when I'm older, maybe never. But Mom taught me I get to choose. And right now I choose the family who chose me. Victoria Ashford runs Ashford Pharmaceuticals, now valued at $8.7 billion, in the foundation. She splits time between Charleston and New York. She still drives a Honda CR-V, now 15 years old. Nathan begs her to upgrade. She says it reminds her of who she was before she remembered who she is. She has never hidden her story. She speaks openly about domestic abuse, financial manipulation, and the long road to healing. When asked in a 2033 interview if she regrets her 8 years with Brett, she said, I regret the lies, I regret the pain, but I don't regret hope. And I don't regret learning that strength isn't about never breaking. It's about how you rebuild. Charleston Battery, Sunset, Victoria, Nathan, Hope, age 3, and Emma, age 8, walking along the water. Hope chasing seagulls, laughing. Emma helping her, protective big sister. Nathan's arm around Victoria. Hope runs back. Mama, look, pretty. Holding a broken shell, jagged edges, beautiful colors. Victoria kneels down. It's beautiful, baby. It's broken, but still pretty. Victoria's eyes tear up. Yes, sometimes broken things are the prettiest. Nathan, you okay? Yeah, I was just thinking about how far we've come. How much has changed. I spent 8 years hiding who I was, then 2 years destroying people, and now I'm finally just living. Any regrets? Only one, that I waited so long to realize I didn't need revenge. I needed this. She gestures to family, sunset, the broken but beautiful shell. This is the real victory. Hope, Mama, come play. Coming, baby. Victoria takes Nathan's hand and runs toward the daughters. Laughter, joy, sunset waves.